Hi, everybody. My name is Thomas Berg. I'm a 3D and VFX journalist. And first of all, thanks a lot for being a part of this awesome event. So, I'm from Trondheim, the third largest city in Norway. And I've been working freelance since 2010. So, in 2019, I started my own company, and it's called High Five Animasjon. And it's still me, but it just sounds a lot more professional when talking to customers. So I'm a self-taught 3D VFX journalist, so my way of learning has not been the traditional way, and it's mainly just watching a lot of making of behind the scenes tutorials, doing research, failing a lot and trying a lot, and going into Facebook groups, and it's a lot of good ways to learn these days. But the most important is, of course, the software and learn about the hardware, but the planning it's a really big like the biggest time consuming part of it, because when you haven't worked on any big shows, you have to learn just by watching a lot of movies and TV shows and try to deconstruct how the approach to the effect is, and just don't learn how to do it, but why you should do it in that way. And that gives you a realistic view of the possibilities on your own budget and time frame, and it also gives the habit of learning and enjoying troubleshooting and like the reward of doing something you didn't know how to do before. And here in Trondheim, my clients, it's a lot of different types. I do a lot of broadcast graphics, and that's mainly everything from visual branding, from taking a show from idea to graphic, and title sequences, animations, and a lot of maps and on-screen graphics. So I work with everything from science shows to children shows to quiz shows. So it's a lot of variety, and you learn a lot also. And industrial animation, it's a really big part of the animation here in Norway because of because of the aquaculture and oil and gas. And it's a lot of product and technical animations. And of course, the most fun and most challenging work is working with visual effects, and that's where my passion really is. And there I do as much as possible, everything from asset creation down to the whole way down to compositing, really. So, and I've been doing it for 10 years, so it's a lot of different scenarios that has learn me to get a lot of knowledge in the different fields. So I often also just work on small parts of it, like not necessarily taking the shots from start to finish, but also, for example, doing just the match moving or simulations for other companies. So per year, I do around 40% broadcast graphics, 30% industrial, and 30% VFX. But I'm hoping to get it up to 100% VFX. That's my goal. And now I will show you some of my work. It's some TV work and a little bit of industrial and some VFX. So when working as a one-man studio, the tools and hardware is a really important part of the job. So I use 3ds Max for my main tool, and V-Ray and Phoenix, and also a lot of other tools like Mudbox, Photoshop, After Effects, TileFlow, ForestBack, PFTrack, Metashape, and Perception Neuron for motion capture, and also Backburner for render management. So here you can see my typical setup at home. It's just a workstation and the render manager, and then I have a small render farm with 4 machines. And I'm going to show now a couple of tips and tricks. So the first one is using a post-render denoiser. And of course, the denoiser in V-Ray is really good, but when working on animation sequences, I often like to have the possibility to adjust it afterwards. And it's a denoiser for After Effects that's called Neat Videos Denoiser, and that's a really good tool. So when using it, it's easy to just select a pattern of the noise, and it automatically generates a profile that works pretty good right off the box. You just have to adjust it a little bit, because sometimes it may blur the image a little too much. And you can also set presets, so you can have like a different V-Ray settings as a preset. Here you can see it turning on and off, and it's a lot of difference. And since it's after render, it's really good if you have rendered something overnight, you're going to deliver and see it's way too much noise. And also it can be used as a mask. So if you have a part of the image that's more noise than the rest, you can mask it out and maybe have a little more noise without losing the details in the areas that don't have to have so much noise reduction. And another part that's I haven't seen anybody else do, so it's kind of my own little trick. It's using the temporal denoiser on particle effects. So the way a temporal denoiser works, it takes your frame and it blends it with before and after frames. So when a particle is moving, you will get a much more average particle, and on especially like the water sims that you see here, you will get this more of a mist feeling almost. So it actually sometimes makes it look a little bigger scale, because the small details disappears and you get more of it's almost like a mist effect. And it's also really good if you, for example, have rendered foam as a on pass overnight, and you see before delivery you have to fix something. It's not something you should use all the time, but sometimes it can help you, like get rid of the what's the name for it? The runaway particles, the one that's, yeah, because it will average it out, so it won't be that sharp. Another trick is using Phoenix and TieCache, because TieCache is used a lot now because it's a really good plugin. And when simulating something on a TieCache file, you want to attach your emitters somehow. But when I simulate, I always have one TieCache file, so it's one mesh. And the way I do that is that I use attachment constraint, and the first thing you should know is what's the phase value you're going to use when doing that. So by using an editable mesh, you can just select the phase and you will get the value. So you just have to remember that value. And then you just create like a dummy or a point or whatever, just something to attach your emitter to. And then you use the constraints. Let me see. And then, yeah, you just type in the value that you had in the phase. You can also find it manually by adjusting, but yeah, it's on these kind of models, it's so many phases that it will take forever. And here you can see it's attached to the face, and it's really easy just to put on a model to emit from on that parent it on. So here I've just created done it on 4 different torches, and you can see it's a good way to simulate it. And I hide the TieCache here before because I just wanted the simulation to go a little faster. And this is also a pre-recorded, so the simulation time here is a little bit slower than how it appears in this preview. the combination of using TyFlow and simulating on top of that is a really powerful and new feature. I think 3ds Max gives it a lot of new powers. That's really awesome. And here you can see different kinds. It's the same technique. I just, instead of simulating the emitter, I simulate or attach a proxy that simulates faster. Here you can see the final shots. And another good thing about this, it's really easy to script the whole operation. And I'm not a scripter, but this is a code I wrote just by using the 3ds Max script helper. So here you can see it in action. You just select the face and it does everything for you. It creates a dummy and it attaches it and parented it. And yeah, and also another part is using what I call simulation templates. Just simulate different things in different files and just reuse them, often with a time offset if there's multiple of them in the same scene. So then, like this, it's one simulation with just a time offset, so it's you don't recognize the pattern in the render, and that makes it much easier to spend some time on one simulation, and then for each time you reuse it, it gets like an added value almost. So it's good to have an archive of different kinds of simulations. So as on this shot, it's a shot that's just a 3D track, and then it's quite fast to just import the simulation you had from before, and that way, for me, it makes it possible to do a lot more VFX on a lot less time. And here also, the fire on the bridge and the torches is simulated in separate scenes and just imported in, and also the water splash. And create presets, it's also a thing I like to do because it's much easier to see how, for example, the blood simulation is when it's a static object instead of a moving object. So I just set up my simulations in a static environment and then save it as a preset. And when I have a scene where I need to have a movement, I know that the preset is good. So sometimes you have to tweak it a little bit, but like here, it's just import a preset and select the emitter, and it simulates it, and yeah, it works really well. And the last tip is actually a quite fun one, because it's more about thinking of a effects, like a practical effects, like this is a spear going through the stomach, and you could simulate it with a meter that emitted all the liquids, but when the emitter is inside it, the spear will go through it and then drag along a lot of blood, so we'll get the blood trails. So it's also fun to like see how they do things practical and just try to recreate it digital, because it's a lot of knowledge there. So that was the end of my presentation, and I would like to end it with saying that working with 3D and VFX, it's a creative sandbox, endless of possibilities. And it's amazing to see companies like Chaos create artist-friendly plugins that's really fast and gives a lot of opportunities to do things I couldn't do before. And here we have the contact info, so if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. You have everything on screen here. And we'd like to thank everybody involved in this event, and I'm looking forward to the next presenters and also just following it the whole day, because it's amazing to have a 24-hour Chaos event. So yeah, thank you.